They didn't win because they were the smartest. They didn't succeed because they had the most resources. They didn't rise because they were the luckiest. They won because they had one thing most people overlook: a positive attitude, that unstoppable mindset that doesn't break under pressure, doesn't whine when things go wrong, and doesn't quit when the odds stack up. A positive attitude is not just a feel-good slogan. It's a force, a tool, a shield, and a sword. It's the silent power behind every underdog story, the breath of hope that fuels persistence, and the energy that turns obstacles into stepping stones. You see, life isn't fair, and it doesn't apologize. It knocks on your door with disappointment, pain, failure, rejection, and waits to see how you respond. That's where your attitude steps in. You can either crumble or rise. You can either complain or conquer. And the weapon that makes all the difference, it's your attitude. They didn't win because they were born with more talent. They didn't rise because they were handed better opportunities. Many of the most successful people in the world came from nothing, started with less, faced more resistance, and still rose to greatness. Why? Because of one invisible factor that made all the difference: their attitude. The truth is, your attitude determines your outcome far more than your abilities. Talent can take you far, but attitude determines how long you stay in the game when talent no longer gives you the edge. Resources can give you a boost, but attitude is what carries you when those resources run dry. Intelligence may open doors, but it's your mindset that decides whether you walk through or back down. Every obstacle in life brings with it a choice. You either face it with fear and hesitation, or with courage and persistence. That choice is dictated by your attitude. It's easy to have a good attitude when everything is going your way, but the power of attitude isn't revealed in comfort. It's revealed in chaos. That's where you find the real difference between those who rise and those who fall. One person sees a setback and thinks, "Why me?" Another sees the same setback and says, "Watch me." That small shift in mindset is the difference between stagnation and growth, defeat and development, quitting and climbing. Attitude fuels resilience. It's the inner voice that says, "Get back up" when life knocks you down. It's the fire that keeps burning when the world grows cold. It's the silent defiance that says, "I'm not done yet," even when everything seems against you. People with strong attitudes don't wait for permission to keep going. They don't wait for conditions to be perfect or for others to cheer them on. They show up anyway. They keep moving. They keep believing. That belief, that inner drive, is what separates the ordinary. Your attitude doesn't just shape your thoughts. It influences your actions. When you believe something is possible, you try harder. You think more creatively. You take more risks. You don't settle. You keep showing up. You push through. You rise again. All because your attitude has convinced you that even if you're not there yet, you can get there. This is why two people with the same background, same education, and same opportunity can have completely different outcomes. One gives up, the other goes on, and the only difference is how they think, how they respond internally to what happens externally. Think about every challenge you've ever faced. What got you through it? Was it your resources? Was it your intelligence? Or was it that voice in your head that said, "This isn't the end"? That's attitude. It's the decision to keep climbing when your legs are tired. It's the refusal to back down when life tries to break you. It's not arrogance. It's not blind positivity. It's courage. It's resilience. It's hope when hope seems irrational. It's the fuel that keeps dreams alive when the world goes silent. Attitude shapes how you handle failure. People with negative attitudes take failure personally. They see it as a reflection of their worth. But people with positive attitudes see it as feedback, a redirection, a lesson that can make them stronger. They don't get paralyzed by the fall. They get smarter because of it. This is why some of the greatest innovators, leaders, and creators failed dozens, even hundreds of times and still kept going. Not because they were immune to failure, but because they had the mindset to rise above it. Attitude also determines how you handle success. Without the right mindset, success becomes a ceiling. You get comfortable. You stopped growing. You protect what you have instead of reaching for more. But with the right attitude, success is just a checkpoint. You stay humble, you stay hungry, and you stay open to new possibilities. Because you're not just trying to win once, you're trying to win consistently. And that kind of consistency is born in the mind, not in the spotlight. In the end, every great story of triumph is also a story of mindset. Behind every comeback is a person who refused to quit. Behind every breakthrough is someone who believed in possibility when others only saw limits. Behind every victory is a mindset that chose determination over doubt. This is why your attitude matters more than anything. It doesn't just shape how you think, it shapes how you live, how you lead, how you bounce back, and how far you go. Two people can go through the exact same situation and come out with completely different experiences, not because the event itself was different, but because their perspectives were. Life is not defined by what happens to you. It's defined by how you interpret it. The lens through which you see your world shapes how you feel, how you act, and ultimately what kind of life you live. Your perspective has the power to either imprison you or it can make you feel like a victim or transform you into a warrior. The same rain that ruins one person's day gives another person a reason to dance. The same failure that breaks one soul becomes the breakthrough for another. It's not about what's happening. It's about how you choose to see it. When you train your mind to search for meaning instead of misery, strength instead of struggle, growth instead of defeat, you unlock the secret power that few people truly master. Because while the world may not always be in your control, your interpretation of the world is entirely in your hands. You cannot always change the situation, but you can always change your response to it. That is the power of perspective. It's the mental switch that allows you to see challenges as opportunities, pain as a teacher, and setbacks as setups for a stronger comeback. When you shift your mindset, you shift your world. You'll meet people who complain about everything, who see negativity in every corner of their life, who view life as something that's always happening to them instead of for them. And then you'll meet others who glow with resilience, who remain calm in chaos, who find joy even in the cracks. The difference? Not in their circumstances, but in the way they've trained their minds to think. Perspective is the quiet force behind emotional stability, inner peace, and long-term happiness. It decides whether you feel helpless or empowered, stuck or strategic, broken or rebuilding. When you look at life from a positive, constructive angle, it doesn't mean you ignore reality. It doesn't mean you're pretending everything is fine. It means you choose not to let negativity run your mind. You choose to see pain as something that can build your strength, not destroy your spirit. You learn to ask better questions in tough times. Questions like, what can I learn from this? Or how can this shape me for the better? Instead of why me or why now? These questions come from a perspective that believes life is still worth fighting for, no matter how hard the moment is. Perspective gives you power in places where others feel powerless. When you're stuck in traffic, you can lose your temper or use the moment to reflect. When someone lets you down, you can spiral in anger or choose to learn who's worth your time. When life gets uncertain, you can panic or remind yourself that growth often comes from the unknown. Every moment is an opportunity to reclaim your peace, simply by how you look at it. Your mental framing becomes your emotional foundation. If you constantly frame life as unfair, you'll feel bitter and exhausted. But if you frame it as a journey with lessons in every chapter, you'll feel motivated to keep reading. This mindset shift doesn't come naturally. It takes intention. It takes repetition. It takes catching yourself when you fall into the trap of negative thinking and redirecting that energy towards something more productive. Just like a camera can change its entire image just by focusing differently, so can your life shift simply by adjusting your mental lens. That's not just a motivational idea, it's neuroscience. The brain looks for what you tell it to look for. If you constantly feed it fear, you'll see danger in everything. But if you feed it gratitude, strength, and purpose, it will highlight those paths in every situation. Even the darkest chapters of life can carry hidden gifts. Loss can teach you what truly matters. Failure can point you to better strategies. Loneliness can reconnect you with yourself. When your perspective is built on hope rather than despair, you begin to see the pain as a part of the process, not a punishment, but a platform, not the end, but a necessary turning point. That's why the most resilient people aren't those who avoid suffering, but those who interpret suffering in a way that empowers them to rise from it. You don't have to control every event in your life. You just have to control how you see it. Because once your perspective changes, everything changes. What once looked like the end now becomes a new beginning. What once felt like a failure now feels like redirection. What once broke you now builds you. And that shift doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. It's not the storm outside that decides your future. It's the mindset inside that determines whether you sink or sail. Your mind is a garden, and every thought you think is a seed. Some seeds are weeds, doubts, fears, insecurities, bitterness. Others are flowers, gratitude, resilience, courage, hope. Whatever you water grows. Whatever you starve dies. Most people don't realize how much control they have over the landscape of their own minds. They let outside circumstances decide what grows inside. They let other people's opinions take root. They allow negative news, toxic environments, and past failures to shape the atmosphere of their thinking. But your mind doesn't care who plants the seeds. It simply grows what it's given. And over time, those seeds become your beliefs, your patterns, your decisions, and ultimately your life. Every single day, your thoughts are either building you up or breaking you down. Every moment is an opportunity to plant something powerful or to allow something poisonous. And the thing is, your mind can't stay neutral. If you're not intentionally planting the right thoughts, weeds will grow by default. Negativity is always lurking, waiting for your focus. You don't have to invite it. It shows up on its own. But positivity, that has to be chosen. You have to train your mind to focus on what uplifts you. You have to build the habit of feeding your faith, your dreams, your confidence, and your peace. If you keep repeating a thought, whether it's true or not, your brain starts to accept it as reality. So if you keep telling yourself you're not good enough, that you'll never succeed, that no one understands you, those thoughts don't just stay as words in your mind. They start to shape your actions. You shrink back, you self-sabotage, you avoid opportunities, you live small. But the opposite is also true. When you plant seeds of belief, when you remind yourself that you have purpose, that your struggle has meaning, that you're growing even when it hurts, you start to move differently. You walk with more power. You pursue more boldly. You treat yourself with more kindness. That's how mindset changes everything. Not because it changes the world outside, but because it changes the world inside. And that inner world drives everything else. Thoughts don't just stay in your head. They become your energy. They influence how you carry yourself, how you speak to others, how you respond to setbacks. A negative mind can never produce a positive life. You can't plant fear and expect peace. You can't plant jealousy and expect joy. You can't plant doubt and expect progress. The fruit always reflects the seed. That's why guarding your mind is one of the most powerful things you can do. It's not about pretending bad things don't happen. It's about choosing what gets to live in your mental space. because whatever lives there leads you. The people who seem the most mentally strong aren't always born that way. They just know how to manage their mental gardens. They pull out the weeds early. They recognize toxic thoughts and refuse to let them spread. They practice gratitude even when life gives them reasons to complain. They speak words of encouragement to themselves when the world is silent. They focus on what they can do instead of obsessing over what they can't. They understand that mental strength isn't a gift, it's a skill. And like any skill, it gets better the more you train it. This is why disciplines like meditation, journaling, positive affirmations, and reading empowering content matter. They're not just feel-good habits. They're tools for mental cultivation. They help you notice what's growing in your mind and give you the power to redirect it. Most people water weeds without even knowing it. They replay hurtful conversations, dwell on what went wrong, and entertain worst case scenario, and then they wonder why they feel stuck, anxious, or defeated. But once you become intentional, once you start feeding the thoughts that serve you, everything begins to shift. Yes, it takes time. You won't see the flowers overnight. You won't feel strong every day. Sometimes it'll feel like the weeds are winning. But if you stay consistent, if you keep planting what's right, if you keep pulling out what doesn't belong, your inner garden will begin to reflect the power and peace you've been cultivating. And over time, that mental environment becomes your safe space, your launch pad, your source of strength, no matter what the outside world looks like. Because even if storms come, and they will, your roots will be deep. Your thoughts will be trained, your spirit will be grounded, and the garden of your mind will remain a place of growth, resilience, and unshakable purpose. There are moments in life when everything around you feels uncertain, when the ground beneath you feels shaky, and the future seems unclear. In those moments, it's easy to give in to fear, to panic, or to retreat. But the ones who move forward aren't the ones who know exactly what lies ahead. They're the ones who trust themselves enough to take the next step anyway. Self-belief is not the absence of doubt. It's the decision to keep moving forward even when doubt is present. It's the quiet confidence that says, I might not have all the answers, but I know I'm capable of figuring it out. It's a deep internal trust that gives you the courage to begin, to continue, and to endure. No one is born with unshakable belief in themselves. It's not a trait, it's a practice. It's built through repetition, through promises kept to yourself, through small victories that prove you're stronger than you thought. Every time you show up when it's hard, every time you do what you said you would do, every time you stand back up after falling, your belief in yourself grows. That belief becomes the foundation on which you build your future. When you believe in yourself, you don't wait for external validation to give you permission. You don't need applause or recognition to feel worthy. You know who you are, and you act from that place of knowing. The problem is that many people let their past dictate their self-belief. They carry failures like heavy bags, thinking that because they fell before, they will fall again. But failure is not proof that you can't, it's proof that you can't. Every time you tried and didn't succeed, you gathered wisdom. Every scar carries a story of survival. Every setback gave you a new tool. The question isn't whether you've failed before. It's whether you've allowed those failures to strengthen your belief or to destroy it. You get to decide what your experiences mean. You get to decide how they shape you. And that choice, that interpretation, builds the narrative of who you believe you are. Self-belief changes how you respond to opportunity. People who don't believe in themselves will hesitate, overthink, and sabotage their own potential. They will talk themselves out of taking action. They will make excuses. They will shrink when it's time to rise. But people who trust themselves see an open door and walk through it, even if they're not sure what's on the other side. They trust that they will adapt, that they will learn, that they will figure it out. And because they act, they gain experience. Because they move, they grow. It becomes a cycle. Belief fuels action. Action builds evidence, and evidence strengthens belief. One of the greatest lies people believe is that they need to feel ready before they begin. But self-belief isn't about waiting for a magical moment where all the doubt disappears. That moment rarely comes. Confidence is born from doing the thing while you're still scared, from speaking up even while your voice shakes, from taking the leap while your legs tremble. You become confident by proving to yourself that you can survive discomfort. You become powerful by stepping into uncertainty and discovering that you're more capable than you imagined. That's the real magic of belief. It transforms how you see yourself, and once you see yourself differently, everything else shifts. When you start to believe in yourself, you stop looking for constant reassurance. You stop comparing yourself to everyone else. You stop letting rejection define your worth. You become anchored in your own sense of identity. You understand that other people's opinions are just that, opinions. They don't get to dictate your value or your future. Your belief becomes your armor. It protects your dream. It fuels your resilience. It keeps you going long after motivation fades, because when you believe in yourself, you don't need things to be easy. You just need them to be possible. And that belief alone is enough to get you started. You also begin to take full responsibility for your growth. You don't blame circumstances. You don't wait for someone to come save you. You own your journey. You realize that the only person who can truly stop you is you. And when you believe that you have what it takes to rise, to overcome, to achieve, you become unstoppable. Not because the road gets easier, but because you get stronger. Self-belief is the most powerful fuel in the world. It's what keeps you standing in the storm. It's what keeps you creating when no one is watching. It's what gives you the quiet strength to say, I may not be there yet, but I will be, because I believe in who I'm becoming. The way you talk to yourself is the most consistent and influential conversation you'll ever have. Your inner dialogue shapes how you feel about yourself, how you handle challenges, and how you show up in the world. The problem is, most people speak to themselves in a way they would never speak to someone they love. They criticize, belittle, doubt, and shame themselves constantly, thinking it's harmless or even, but harsh self-talk doesn't push you forward, it holds you back. It chips away at your confidence, poisons your mindset, and makes every step heavier than it needs to be. On the other hand, kind and empowering self-talk creates a solid foundation for personal growth, resilience, and emotional well-being. It's not about lying to yourself or pretending everything's perfect. It's about choosing to be your biggest supporter instead of your harshest critic. When you're going through something difficult, the last thing you need is your own voice turning against you. Yet that's what happens for so many people. They mess up and immediately label themselves as a failure. They face rejection and instantly decide they're not good enough. They make a mistake and call themselves stupid, worthless, or weak. That kind of self-talk doesn't just stay in your head. It affects your energy, your decisions, and your behavior. You start to pull back. You play it safe. You stop trying. Because deep down, you've already convinced yourself you can't. But if you spoke to yourself with compassion, encouragement, and belief, even your lowest moments could become powerful turning points. Your words would act like a safety net instead of a trap. They'd catch you, lift you, and remind you that this is just a moment, not a life sentence. The truth is, your subconscious mind is always listening. It takes your self-talk as instruction. If you say, I can't handle this, it starts looking for reasons to prove you right. If you say, I'm terrible at this, your brain will start filtering out evidence of progress and focus only on mistakes. But if you say, I'm learning, I'm growing, or I've overcome before and I will again, your brain starts to operate from a place of possibility. It looks for strength. It activates resilience. It opens doors instead of closing them. Positive self-talk doesn't mean denying difficulty. It means refusing to make difficulty your identity. Think of your self-talk as the internal coach that's with you every day. If that coach is constantly yelling, belittling, and focusing only on what went wrong, you're not going to perform at your best. But if that coach is encouraging, supportive, and solution-oriented, you're more likely to persevere, learn, and thrive. Everyone needs a voice inside that says, you've got this when things fall apart. Everyone needs that internal reminder that mistakes are not the end of the story. They're part of the process. When you become intentional about how you speak to yourself, you begin to shift your inner climate. You create an environment that allows growth to happen, even in the most challenging seasons. It's also important to understand that your self-talk becomes your emotional baseline. The words you repeat over time create emotional grooves in your mind. If your default is negativity, you'll always be dragging yourself through your days. You'll feel tired, unmotivated, and defeated before you even start. But if your default becomes constructive and encouraging language, you'll build emotional stamina. You'll wake up with more clarity, more energy, and more willingness to engage with life. You'll face problems knowing you have the power to respond with strength and creativity. You'll stop abandoning yourself in difficult moments and start standing by yourself instead. Developing positive self-talk doesn't mean never being honest about your flaws or challenges. It means being honest and kind. It means saying, I messed up, but I'm still worthy. It means admitting, this is hard, but I've done hard things before. It means choosing language that keeps the door open instead of slamming it shut. And it takes practice. At first, it might feel fake. It might feel forced, but the more you speak to yourself with respect and hope, the more natural it becomes. You start to build a relationship with yourself that is rooted in trust rather than fear, in encouragement rather than criticism. And that relationship becomes the anchor that steadies you when life gets overwhelming. How you speak to yourself in quiet moments when no one else is around determines how you show up in the loud, chaotic, and demanding moments of life. If you want to face the world with confidence, you have to speak to yourself with confidence. If you want to overcome obstacles, you have to remind yourself you're capable. Your voice is powerful. Use it to build, not break. Use it to empower, not discourage. Use it to become the kind of person who rises even when everything around you says sink. Because the way you speak to yourself doesn't just echo in your head, it creates the rhythm of your life. Gratitude has a transformative power that often goes unnoticed in the rush of daily life. Most people are so focused on what they lack, what went wrong, or what they wish they had, that they miss what's right in front of them. Gratitude shifts that perspective completely. It reorients your mind from scarcity to abundance. When you choose to focus on what you do have instead of what you don't, everything changes. Not because your circumstances suddenly improve, but because your attitude does. A grateful person isn't blind to life's struggles. They're simply more attuned to its blessings. They recognize that joy isn't always found in grand achievements, but in the quiet moments, the simple things, and the small victories that most overlook. That recognition becomes a powerful emotional anchor, keeping you grounded and positive, even in the face of adversity. It's easy to be grateful when things are going well. But the real strength of gratitude shows up when life doesn't go as planned. When you can still find something to be thankful for during hard times, you unlock a level of resilience that most people never access. Gratitude during difficulty doesn't mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging the pain while still choosing to see beauty, lessons, or even hope in the process. That choice changes your emotional chemistry. It reduces stress, calms anxiety, and invites peace into situations where chaos could have taken over. Instead of being overwhelmed by what's missing, you begin to feel empowered by what remains. And sometimes that shift in focus is exactly what you need to find your next step forward. People often wait for something big to happen before they allow themselves to feel grateful. They think they'll be grateful when they get the promotion, when they find the right relationship, when they reach their goals. But gratitude isn't a reward for success. It's a pathway to it. The more you appreciate what you already have, the more you unlock mental clarity, emotional strength, and spiritual alignment that help you pursue what's next. Gratitude multiplies what you focus on. If you focus on problems, they expand. If you focus on blessings, they expand too. Your mind is a spotlight, and gratitude decides where that light shines. When it shines on what's good, what's working, and what you've already overcome, your entire reality begins to feel different, even if nothing has changed on the outside. One of the most overlooked aspects of gratitude is how it influences relationships. A grateful attitude makes you kinder, more empathetic, and more patient. You start to notice the efforts others make. You become more generous with your praise. You stop taking people for granted. That energy builds trust, connection, and mutual respect. People are drawn to those who appreciate life, who see the good, who lift others up. Gratitude is contagious. It spreads through conversations, actions, and energy. When you lead with gratitude, you create environments where others feel valued and seen, and that ripple effect can strengthen everything from friendships to teams to families. Gratitude also changes how you see yourself. Instead of constantly measuring yourself by your flaws, shortcomings, or failures, you start recognizing your strengths, your progress, and your growth. You begin to see yourself as a work in progress, not a project that's behind schedule. You give yourself grace for where you are and appreciation for how far you've come. That self-acknowledgement builds confidence from the inside out. It's not about ego. It's about self-respect. When you value yourself, you stop chasing validation from people who can't see your worth. Gratitude roots you in your own value, and that foundation makes you more emotionally secure, less reactive, and more present. Many people journal or reflect on gratitude as a daily habit, and it's because the impact compounds over time. It's like training a muscle. At first, you might only notice a few things to be grateful for, but the more you practice, the more your mind begins to notice the good automatically. You start seeing beauty in ordinary things: a smile, a sunrise, a lesson learned, a stranger's kindness, your own breath. Those little moments become sources of strength. They remind you that life doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. They remind you that there is always something to hold on to, even in the darkest of seasons. And that consistent recognition of good, even when surrounded by bad, becomes your superpower. Gratitude is not just a nice feeling. It's a tool for transformation. It helps you bounce back faster, stay grounded longer, and see further than your circumstances. It breaks the cycle of negative thinking, complaining, and comparing. It silences the noise of not enough and turns up the volume on what matters most. It allows you to rise without bitterness, to succeed without arrogance, to fail without losing hope. Gratitude is what connects the heart to the mind, the past to the present, the individual to something greater. It rewires the brain, opens the heart, and creates space for peace where chaos once lived. The more you live in a state of gratitude, the more you begin to realize that joy doesn't come from what you have, it comes from how you see what you have. And once you see your life through that lens, everything begins to shift in the most powerful way. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people see it as a dead end, a sign that they're not good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to succeed. They treat it like a wall that separates them from their goals rather than a stepping stone that brings them closer to them. But failure is not the opposite of success. It's a critical part of it. Every person who has ever achieved something worthwhile has failed more times than they've succeeded. What sets them apart isn't that they avoided failure, but that they refused to let it define them. They saw it for what it truly is: a teacher, a guide, a necessary force for growth and transformation. When you begin to embrace failure as a lesson, you remove its power to discourage you and instead allow it to refine you. But the problem is that society has conditioned people to fear failure. From a young age, we're taught that mistakes are bad, that getting it wrong is shameful, and that failure means you're not good enough. That conditioning runs deep. So when people fall short, they don't just feel disappointed. They feel embarrassed, defeated, even humiliated. They internalize the failure and make it part of their identity. But failure doesn't say anything about your worth. It simply reveals what didn't work. That's all. It's data, not a verdict. And if you're willing to look at that data with curiosity instead of judgment, you can extract the insight needed to move forward with more wisdom, skill, and perspective than before. Every setback becomes an opportunity to become stronger, smarter, and more resilient. Most people give up too soon because they think failure means it's not meant for them. They try once, face resistance, and walk away, not realizing that the resistance is part of the path. Growth always includes discomfort. Learning anything new comes with errors. Mastery requires mistakes. The people who go the furthest in life are not the ones who had the smoothest journey. They're the ones who kept going when things got messy. They fell, they got back up, they tried again with new strategy, new perspective, and new determination. That's how champions are built. That's how breakthroughs are made. Not in perfection, but in persistence. There's also a hidden gift in failure that many people overlook: clarity. Failure has a way of stripping away illusions. It shows you what's real, what matters, and what needs to change. It brings weaknesses to the surface so you can address them. It exposes faulty assumptions so you can correct them. It tests your passion and commitment so you know whether your goal is truly aligned with your purpose. In that way, failure is a kind of filter. It filters out what isn't working, what isn't authentic, and what isn't sustainable. That clarity is priceless. It gives you a sharper focus and a deeper connection to your why. It makes the next attempt more intentional, more informed, and more powerful. Another powerful aspect of failure is that it builds emotional resilience. Every time you face failure and choose not to crumble, you grow tougher. You learn to sit with discomfort without being consumed by it. You learn to separate your value from your performance. You learn that rejection isn't fatal, that criticism isn't the end, and that stumbling doesn't mean you're broken. That emotional muscle is essential for navigating life, because the truth is life will test you. It will knock you down. It will throw curveballs. And if you haven't trained yourself to see failure as part of the process, you'll be tempted to quit every time something goes wrong. But if you've learned to respect failure, to welcome its lessons, to rise each time with a stronger mindset, then there's very little that can stop you. Failure also humbles you in the best way. It reminds you that you don't know everything, that you're still growing, still evolving. That humility keeps you open to learning. It keeps your ego in check and your hunger alive. It makes you more empathetic toward others who are struggling. It helps you become a better leader, a better teammate, a better human being. You stop seeing success as a straight line and start seeing it as a winding path filled with experiments, setbacks, comebacks, and growth. And that mindset creates longevity, because people who fear failure burn out quickly, but people who understand failure endure. They last. They keep building, keep learning, and keep becoming. Your relationship with failure will either limit you or liberate you. If you fear it, you'll play small, avoid risk, and never find out what you're truly capable of. But if you embrace it, you'll open yourself up to growth, innovation, and breakthroughs that you never thought possible. You'll discover strengths you didn't know you had. You'll develop grit, discipline, and courage. You'll stop running from the hard things and start moving toward them with purpose, because you'll know that failure doesn't destroy you, it develops you. It doesn't mean stop, it means adjust. And once you truly understand that, Failure loses its sting and becomes one of your most powerful allies on the road to success. Surrounding yourself with the right people is one of the most powerful choices you can make to maintain a positive attitude and grow into the person you are meant to be. The people around you shape your mindset more than you realize. Their energy, beliefs, words, and behaviors influence how you see the world, how you see yourself, and how you handle challenges. If you spend time with people who constantly complain, gossip, or dwell on negativity, it's only a matter of time before that energy seeps into your thinking. Even if you're naturally optimistic, consistent exposure to toxic energy wears you down. You start second-guessing your goals, doubting your progress, and losing your spark. That's the silent power of influence. But the reverse is also true. When you're around people who are positive, driven, kind, and forward-thinking, their mindset lifts you higher. They remind you of what's possible. They challenge you to grow. They hold you accountable to your better self. And in their presence, you begin to see life through a more empowered lens. Too often, people hold on to relationships out of history, guilt, or comfort, even when those relationships are draining their energy and dimming their potential. It's hard to outgrow people you once loved or cared about deeply, but growth demands alignment. And sometimes the version of you that's evolving cannot coexist with the energy that's pulling you back. That doesn't mean you cut people off harshly or with resentment. It means you get intentional. You become mindful of who has access to your heart, your dreams, your energy. You learn to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Your peace is the foundation of your focus, and your focus is the fuel for your future. If the people around you are constantly creating drama, discouragement, or distractions, you have to ask yourself if keeping those connections is worth the cost of your growth. One of the most powerful things you can do for your mindset is to audit your circle. Who challenges you to think bigger? Who encourages your dreams? Who holds you accountable to your values? Who celebrates your growth instead of competing with it? If your circle is made up of people who drain instead of pour, who belittle instead of believe, who sabotage instead of support, then you're not in a circle, you're in a cage. And no matter how strong your attitude is, that kind of environment will limit you. But when you intentionally build a circle of growth-oriented, purpose-driven individuals, everything begins to shift. Your conversations become deeper. Your goals become clearer. Your motivation becomes stronger. You begin to rise, not just because you're trying harder, but because you're finally surrounded by people who breathe life into you rather than suffocate your potential. People who carry positive energy, who are rooted in purpose and joy, operate with a different frequency. Being around them changes your emotional state. Their encouragement feels sincere. Their presence feels safe. Their belief in you feels energizing, and that creates an upward spiral. You start expecting more from yourself. You start approaching problems with hope instead of fear. You start chasing dreams that once felt out of reach, and the more you grow, the more you naturally attract others on the same path. That's the beauty of alignment. When you shift your internal standards, your external relationships begin to reflect that shift. You no longer tolerate disrespect, negativity, or chaos, not because you're better than anyone, but because you've learned to value your energy. Another hidden benefit of surrounding yourself with the right people is that you no longer feel alone in your journey. One of the biggest threats to a positive attitude is isolation. When you're going through hard times or chasing big goals alone, it's easy to get overwhelmed or discouraged. But when you have people in your corner who remind you of your strength, who speak life into you, who show up even when things aren't perfect, that support changes everything. It becomes a cushion during the fall and a boost during the climb. You realize you don't have to carry everything by yourself. That sense of community, even if it's just a few close people, becomes your safety net. It helps you stay grounded when emotions rise and helps you bounce back when you fall. The truth is, we often become the average of the people we spend the most time with, not just in habits and lifestyle, but in mindset, belief systems, and emotional energy. So if you want to elevate your life, elevate your environment. Be around people who speak possibility. Be around people who live with integrity. Be around people who are excited to grow and help others grow and be the kind of person who brings that same energy to others. Positive people find each other because they're looking in the same direction. And when you walk that path together, the journey becomes lighter, the vision becomes clearer, and the climb becomes worth it. It's not just about surrounding yourself with people who like you. It's about surrounding yourself with people who believe in the person you are becoming and remind you of who you are when you forget. The power of consistent action cannot be overstated. It's one of the most transformative forces you can tap into to achieve success, happiness, and fulfillment. In the world we live in, we often get caught up in the idea of big, grand gestures that will lead to instant results. We look for shortcuts, quick fixes, or miracle solutions that promise overnight success. But the truth is, success isn't built on singular moments of brilliance. It's the result of everyday incremental actions that compound over time. It's not about taking one giant leap toward your goal. It's about taking a steady, relentless series of small steps day in and day out, regardless of how small they may seem in the moment. Most people fail not because they lack the talent, intelligence, or vision to succeed, but because they abandon their efforts too soon. They try something once, don't see immediate results, and then quit. The key to breaking this cycle is understanding that consistency, not perfection, is the real key to success. A person who shows up every day, even in the face of setbacks, doubts, or exhaustion, will eventually surpass the person who only works sporadically or gives up at the first sign of difficulty. Consistency is what builds mastery. It's what separates the amateurs from the experts. While talent is a gift, consistency is a choice. And it's the choice that will carry you through when the excitement fades and the initial enthusiasm begins to wane. When you commit to consistent action, you learn the art of discipline. It's easy to start something when you're motivated or inspired. But discipline is what keeps you going when motivation fades. It's what allows you to keep working even when the results aren't immediately visible. With consistent action, you slowly build momentum. Each action, no matter how small, feeds into the next. It's like planting seeds and nurturing them every day, even when you can't see them growing. You may not notice the progress on a daily basis, but if you look back after months or years of consistent effort, you'll be amazed at how much you've achieved. Consistency also builds confidence. When you commit to taking regular action toward your goals, you create a track record of success. You prove to yourself that you can be reliable, that you can follow through. This builds your belief in your own abilities, making it easier to tackle bigger challenges and take on more ambitious projects. The more you show up and put in the work, the more you trust yourself and your ability to get things done. Over time, this confidence becomes a powerful force that drives you to keep going, even when faced with challenges that might have once caused you to give up. Another powerful aspect of consistent action is its ability to create habits. The more you engage in positive, goal-oriented behavior, the more automatic it becomes. Instead of having to rely on willpower every day, you start operating on autopilot, and your actions begin to align seamlessly with your desired outcomes. Consistency over time becomes the foundation for lasting change. For example, if you're trying to get healthier, it's not the occasional intense workout or crash diet that will change your body. It's the daily decisions to move more, eat better, and prioritize your well-being that will create lasting transformation. Small actions add up. The way you spend your days determines the way your life unfolds. Consistency also helps you overcome obstacles. Life will never be free of challenges. There will always be unforeseen difficulties, setbacks, and obstacles along the way. But if you've developed the habit of showing up and taking consistent action, those challenges become less intimidating. You'll be able to handle setbacks with greater ease, knowing that you faced difficulties before and pushed through them. Your daily practice of consistency builds resilience. It trains your mind to keep going, to problem solve, and to stay focused on the bigger picture. Even when things get tough, you don't give up because you know that consistent effort is the key to eventually overcoming any obstacle in your path. The other benefit of consistent action is that it helps you stay focused on your long-term goals. In a world that constantly bombards us with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what really matters. It's easy to get caught up in the noise, the quick fixes, and the shiny objects that promise instant gratification. But consistency keeps you grounded. It helps you stay focused on the bigger picture, reminding you of your long-term vision. Each action, no matter how small, becomes a building block toward your ultimate goal. Instead of getting discouraged by short-term setbacks or detours, you learn to see each step as part of the journey, knowing that progress is still being made, even if it's not immediately visible. The reality is that success is rarely the result of one big move. It's the sum of many small actions taken consistently over time. Whether it's a business venture, personal development, or any other goal you're pursuing, consistent action is the key to making meaningful progress. It's easy to look at successful people and think they've figured something out that you haven't. But the truth is, their success is often the result of years of consistent effort, long before they reached the level of visibility or recognition they now have. They simply stayed the course. They kept putting in the work even when no one was watching. And that's what you can do too. It's not about finding shortcuts. It's about committing to the process, no matter how long it takes. Because when you do, you'll find that your consistent efforts will eventually compound into the success you've been working toward all along. Gratitude is often considered one of the most powerful emotional tools at your disposal. It has the ability to shift your perspective, reframe your mindset, and transform your emotional landscape. In a world that constantly pushes us toward more, better, and faster, it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of what we don't yet have and overlook the abundance we already possess. This cycle of longing and dissatisfaction can lead to stress, frustration, and even feelings of inadequacy. However, when you practice gratitude, you break that cycle. Gratitude forces you to pause and recognize what is already good in your life. It invites you to see the blessings, no matter how small, and cultivate a mindset that focuses on abundance rather than lack. The act of being grateful is not just an emotional response. It's a deliberate, conscious choice to see the world through a different lens, a lens of appreciation and contentment. One of the most significant benefits of practicing gratitude is that it helps you shift your focus from what's wrong to what's right. It's so easy to become consumed by the challenges, setbacks, and obstacles that life throws your way. The human brain has a natural tendency to focus on problems, which can often lead to feelings of overwhelm or helplessness. However, when you make gratitude a regular part of your life, you retrain your mind to focus on the positives, no matter how small they may seem. Instead of dwelling on what you lack or what's going wrong, you begin to recognize the good things you already have: your health, your relationships, your opportunities, your skills, and your experiences. This shift in focus not only boosts your emotional well-being, but also empowers you to take action with a clearer, more positive mindset. It opens you up to new possibilities and solutions that you may have overlooked when you were too focused on the negatives. Gratitude also helps you cultivate a deeper sense of contentment and satisfaction in your life. In a society that promotes constant striving and comparison, it's easy to feel like you're never enough or that there's always something more to achieve. But practicing gratitude teaches you to appreciate the present moment and find joy in what you have right now. You begin to realize that happiness isn't something that's found in the future or in a distant goal. It's something that can be created in the present through your appreciation of what's already here. Gratitude brings you back to the present moment and allows you to experience joy and fulfillment in the here and now, instead of always looking ahead and feeling like you're not quite there yet. This sense of contentment creates a deeper sense of peace, reducing feelings of anxiety or impatience about the future. Gratitude is a powerful tool for improving relationships. When you express gratitude to others, you not only make them feel appreciated, but also deepen your connection with them. Recognizing the efforts, kindness, and support of those around you fosters a sense of mutual respect and trust. When people feel valued, they are more likely to show up for you, offer help when needed, and create a positive, supportive environment. Gratitude also helps you see the best in people, even in difficult circumstances. When faced with conflict or challenges in a relationship, practicing gratitude allows you to step back and remember the positive qualities and actions that person has contributed. Instead of focusing on faults or misunderstandings, you approach the situation with a mindset of appreciation, which can diffuse tension and create space for resolution and growth. Another remarkable impact of gratitude is its ability to enhance mental and physical health. Studies have shown that regularly practicing gratitude can reduce stress, anxiety, and depression, and even improve sleep quality. Gratitude has a calming effect on the mind and body, helping you manage negative emotions and cultivate a sense of inner peace. This emotional balance, in turn, supports better physical health, as it strengthens the immune system, lowers blood pressure, and boosts overall well-being. When you're grateful, you're less likely to become overwhelmed by negative emotions, which can take a toll on your physical health. Instead, you create a foundation of emotional resilience that helps you navigate life's ups and downs with more ease and stability. Gratitude also encourages you to recognize the interconnectedness of life. When you take the time to appreciate the people, circumstances, and resources that contribute to your well-being, you begin to see how everything in your life is connected. You recognize that your success is not just the result of your own efforts, but also the result of the support, opportunities, and experiences that have come your way. This awareness helps you embrace humility and acknowledge that you are part of a larger, interconnected world. It creates a deeper sense of belonging and a greater appreciation for the contributions of others. Instead of viewing life as a series of isolated events or achievements, you see it as a shared experience that is richer and more meaningful because of the connections and contributions of those around you. Lastly, gratitude plays a vital role in enhancing your ability to persevere. Life is full of challenges and setbacks, but when you practice gratitude, you begin to develop a stronger sense of resilience, even in the face of adversity. Gratitude reminds you of your strengths, your resources, and the lessons you've learned along the way. It gives you the perspective needed to navigate difficulties with grace and perseverance. When you focus on the positive, you create an emotional foundation that helps you bounce back from challenges and keep moving forward. Gratitude shifts your mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance, allowing you to see opportunities in every challenge and growth in every setback. It reminds you that even in the toughest moments, there is always something to be thankful for, and that perspective helps you stay focused and motivated even when the going gets tough. The secret isn't out there. It's inside you. Right now. You already have what it takes. The question is, will you choose it? A positive attitude won't make life easy, but it will make you unstoppable. And in a world that's constantly trying to pull you down, the greatest rebellion is to rise